Well, good morning,
Good
Arif.
morning.
Hey, are you in the sanctuary?
I am in the sanctuary, and
That is-
it is toasty in here.
It's good to see you in there. Isabela, good morning to you.
Good
Hey,
morning,
Isabela.
Justin.
It is
Hi.
fabulous to lead worship with the three of you this morning. So I've been thinking a lot this week about kind of the ups and downs of this time we're in. Curious for the two of you, or maybe all of us can reflect on this. What is it that can bring you joy almost instantly in your day-to-day life? What are those things?
Oh, wow. That's a great question.
I can get started if you
Yeah.
if you want.
Go ahead.
I was actually brainstorming a list of these because the other day I was feeling pretty rough, and I noticed that one of the things that helps me a lot is to call my grandma. I don't know why, but she always has the best things to tell me and can just make my day instantly better.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
That is fabulous.
I've been reaching out to friends as well, just those connections, people who know me, friends and family. And then I have some blueberry plants that have been 3 or 4 years kind of growing. And this year, for the first time, they have fresh blueberries, and just picking a fresh blueberry makes me happy.
That's awesome. You know, I think
Yeah.
for me, somewhat similarly, it is noticing things that are growing, you know. It feels like every day I go outside, there is a different flower, a different plant that is doing something different than it had been the last time I noticed it. And that just instantly shifts my view.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome to all of you that are coming in. We're just watching you stream in virtually into this space. I think this is a imaginative space we are in on Sunday mornings, where we can picture ourselves maybe in the sanctuary. That's where Arif is right now, and kind of imagine the pews filling up and families parking and coming on into the building. So good morning and welcome to all of you. I'm Justin Schroeder, one of the ministers at First Universalist Church. And I want to say a special welcome to the children and youth who are with us here this morning, watching with your parents or your people. Just hello, we're glad you're with us. And hello to everyone else. Excuse me, those who are joining us from around the state, those who are joining us from around the country and the world. We're really delighted that you're here with us this morning. So in this time of physical distancing, when we cannot gather in a brick and mortar building, we remember in a visceral way, I hope, we remember that church is not a specific place. Church is not about a minister. Church is not even really about a building. Church is created wherever we gather, virtually or otherwise, wherever we gather and we hold our highest values and aspirations, where we hold our frailty and our failings, where we hold our hopes and deepest commitments. And so, hello, virtual church. It is good to be with you this morning. For over 160 years, in the universalist spirit of love and hope, we have been the people who have been giving and receiving and growing together. And as we gather today, we remember that we are the people who welcome and affirm and protect the light in each human heart, who listen deeply to where love is calling us next, and who, with humility, courage, and compassion, act to create a more just world. We do all of these things as a faith community committed to racial justice. This is the life and the path we invite you to journey on with us. These are the spiritual practices and muscles we are building for this time we are in. And as you journey with us, we want to make sure that you're receiving our weekly newsletter, the electronic newsletter called The Liberal. You can sign up for that online. And you can also online learn about many other opportunities for fellowship and connection. Please join us on Wednesday at 7 o'clock for a 30-minute worship service. It's a time to center and recharge right in the middle of the week. Following the service today, we're offering 2 virtual coffee hours, one for Black, Indigenous, and multiracial people of color, and then one for everyone else. We're also offering our first step class right after the service today. So if you've been with us for a couple of Sundays or a couple of months, whatever it might be, and are interested in learning more about this faith community and ways you can be involved, First Step is for you. It's a 30-minute overview and orientation to this congregation and our faith together. There are, on the website, if you click on the Sunday worship link, you'll find Zoom links to all of these gatherings after the service. And then Later today, 11:30 to 1, folks of all racial identities are invited to a virtual viewing and discussion of the video, Defund the Police, What Comes After. This will be a video presentation by Reclaim the Block and Black Visions Collective. It will be facilitated by First Universalist members Bianca Zick and Denise Conan, white anti-racist facilitators and activists. The Zoom link is on our website and in the Weekly Liberal as well. So friends, let's take a moment to gather ourselves in this virtual space we are in together. Let's take a moment to prepare our hearts for this time of connection and renewal. Let's start by grounding in and centering together and taking 3 deep breaths, letting our collective bodies come into this time and place together. And now I invite you to find your chalice if you have one, and to light your chalice in just a moment, as Canute and Harriet will lead us in our chalice lighting words. And after we light our chalice together, Isabela Alvarez will share a story for all ages.
Please join me for the words of the lighting of the chalice. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning, my name is Isabela, and I'm here today to tell you the story of Alma, Sofia, Esperanza, Jose, Pura Candela. Alma had a long name. Too long, she thought. Alma felt really sad about her name. She told her dad, "It just doesn't fit. It's much too long for me." And he said, "Let me tell you the story of your name, and then you can decide if it doesn't fit." She came and she sat on his lap, and he pulled her in close. He started. Sofia was your grandmother. She loved books, poetry, jasmine flowers, and most of all, me, your dad. She was the one who taught me how to read. And Alma said, "Oh my goodness, I also love poetry and flowers, and I also love you, Dad. I am Sofia. Yo soy Sofia." Then he told her, Esperanza was your great-grandmother, your bisabuela. She wanted to travel, but she had never even left her own city. Her son, though, traveled all 7 seas. And she lived through him because everywhere she went, her heart went along with him. Alma said, "Oh my goodness, I want to travel the world too. I am Esperanza. Yo soy Esperanza." Jose, her dad told her, was your grandfather, your abuelo. He was an artist with a big family. Every morning, he would wake up very early and go to the mountain or to the plaza to paint pictures of the landscape or the people of the town. And sometimes he would even bring me along. Your abuelo was the one who taught me how to see and love our people. Alma said, "Oh my goodness, I am an artist too. I love to draw. I like to wake up early in the mornings and draw. Even this morning, Dad, I drew a little kitty for you. I am Jose. Yo soy Jose." Pura, Alma's father went on, was your great aunt, your tia abuela. She always believed that the spirits of our ancestors were watching over us and protecting us. And when you were a little baby, she tied a red string around your wrist to protect you from evil spirits. And just like that, she will always be with you. Hola, Pura, it's me, Alma. Candela, Alma's dad went on, was your other grandma, your otra abuela. And she always stood up for what she believed in. "Hey, that's just like me," said Alma. "I always stand up for the things that I believe in." I am Candela. Yo soy Candela. I love the story of my name, said Alma. It's so beautiful. But where does Alma come from? Her dad smiled and answered, You are the first and only Alma. You will make your own story out of your name. Alma smiled and said, Gracias, Papa. Thank you, Dad. Alma Sofia Esperanza Jose Pura Candela is my name, and it fits me just right. I am Alma, and I have a story to tell. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Isabela. That story is just beautiful. Listening to it, hearing you share it, I was reminded a little bit of the story of my name. So my name is Arif Bashir Mamdani, and my first name means good friend or honored guest, esteemed colleague. And my middle name is actually my father's first name. In my family, it is a tradition that the kids carry their dad's first name as their middle name. And that story just reminded me of just the ways in which we carry our ancestors with us sometimes in our names, and the ways in which names can connect us to, sort of a bigger picture. I'm curious, is there a story with your name?
Yeah, there is. Thanks for sharing your story, Arif. That's pretty cool. My name is pretty long too. It's Isabela Delfina Alvarez Arris. And I'm from Ecuador, and in Ecuador, most people get a first and a second name. So you always end up using your middle name, actually. So my middle name is Delfina, and that means dolphin in Spanish, which is pretty fun.
Oh,
My
wow.
brother is actually named Emilio Lobo, which means wolf. So we both have like animal names. And it fits me perfectly because I love the ocean and I love swimming and like being playful. And then with my two last names, the way it works in Ecuadorian culture and a lot of Latin American cultures as well, is that you take first your father's last name and then your mother's. So Alvarez is my dad's, and then Arris is my mom's. And it's really cool because when women get married, they're not expected to change their names at all. You just sort of pass down your name to your children. So your children always have like your last name and your spouse's last name.
Oh, wow. That is wonderful. I love that. I love the ways that different cultures use names as a way sometimes to connect to history and to connect to future as well. And I would offer that for the folks, in worship with us today is, if you haven't connected in with your name, what your name means and how it connects you to past and to present and to future, I'd invite you to think about that and maybe share that story with someone. And now we get to enjoy some music from Seth Matz.
This song includes a familiar clapping pattern, so feel free to clap along with me. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you for that song and those words that just speak to us in this moment, in this time of great turning. And so, friends, I invite us all to pause, to rest in this moment, to settle our bodies, to settle in, to settle down, to take a breath. Maybe take another breath or two or three to really let our spirits catch up with our bodies in this moment we are in. If you want, you can relax your shoulders, you can relax your tummy, your belly. Notice where you might be holding stress or tightness or worry, maybe in your jaws or your back. Just breathe into those places if you are able and settle into this moment. If you'd like, you can close your eyes if that helps you be present and rest in this moment. As together we come into this time of naming, this time of holding, this time of honoring the realities of our life. As we come into this time of feeling ourselves held in that larger life that we are all a part of. Spirit of life and spirit of love, source that animates all of creation. Remind us that prayer, if nothing else, is about naming, is about naming who we are, naming how we are, naming where we are, and naming what we are. Remind us that prayer is about naming and claiming, often naming and claiming out loud so that something larger than ourselves, a community, that spirit that is bigger than us, God, if you will, so something larger than ourselves can witness our longing, can witness our naming, can witness our hopes and our dreams and our heartbreak. Spirit of life, we come into this time scared and anxious, lonely and grateful, grieving and stressed, relaxed and delighted, and deeply uncertain of what the future holds. We come into this space bringing all of the parts of ourselves, the parts we so easily show the world, the parts we scarcely show anyone, and everything in between. We come into this time wondering about the new world we might build, the new world we might move into, where everyone can show up unafraid, head held high, living into the fullness of who they are as we find new ways of being together. This morning, as we come together, we remember that nothing is permanent. We remember that feelings are like the tide, it ebbs and it flows, and that sometimes the biggest feelings we can have simply want to be felt, to be named, to be seen, to be witnessed. We come into this space remembering on some deep level that when we name and claim our feelings, when we name and claim our truth, our realities, our identities, when we name and claim the world we long for, when we do those things, we join the human family, we join our ancestors, we join the generations to come in this practice of being human, in this practice of naming and dreaming about a new world. There are so many who have come into this space this morning who are carrying heavy hearts. So many who long for clarity in these days of confusion and upheaval. So many who long for hope in the midst of not knowing. And I invite you this morning to give voice to the concerns you carry. You can type those in the chat box if you are so moved, so that we and that larger source might witness and hold one another. You are invited to type those sorrows or those concerns, or you can simply hold them in the silence, the silent sanctuary of your heart. But in this time, we witness, we hold one another and the hard things that we carry. Our families, we are always aware of the love for our families and grief at those who have passed away. So much worry about what comes next with a pandemic. Worried about our families and their health and their well-being. Those who are nearing the end of their lives. Wondering about how do we show up in this time? How do we step forward or step back, whatever it might be? Worried about the growing population of people experiencing homelessness. Thinking of those on the front lines, healthcare workers and those in grocery stores and teachers, and worried about our family and friends and relatives. And friends, as you type these things into the chat box, what I want to remind you is there is a community, 100 strong right now, holding and reading these concerns. You are not alone with these concerns. There is a community that is holding its hands like this and holding your heart and your heartbreak in this moment. In addition to those things that have been named in the chat box today, we hold Casey Rush and Richard Spratt in our hearts. Casey's stepmother and father, Bill and Ruth Rush, have both been diagnosed with COVID-19, and her 91-year-old stepmother is beginning hospice care. Her father is at home with 24-hour care. Our love surrounds Casey's brother, Nathan Rush, who is doing the best he can to care for Bill and Ruth. And our love surrounds Casey's sisters, Robin, Jenny, and Molly. And we hold in our hearts Gail Schwartz, who has been diagnosed with stage 2 cancer and has a lumpectomy scheduled for this Tuesday. Gail welcomes positive thoughts and prayers for strength and healing, and we share those with her. And this morning, we mourn the deaths and celebrate the lives of C.T. Vivian and John Lewis, men of moral courage and conscience, men who worked tirelessly to make Black lives matter, men who disrupted the status quo, who were freedom fighters, who believed in the power of nonviolent direct confrontation. And we honor and celebrate their lives and recognize the work that is still left undone. And so this morning we light a candle for C.T. Vivian, and we light a candle for John Lewis. May their light and their life live on in us. Friends, what is also true is that there is no single story that defines our lives. Our sorrow so often weaves with joy. Our resentment can turn and dance with gratitude. Our fear can give way to curiosity. Humility grounds us. and releases us from the need to be perfect or to have perfection as the benchmark in our lives. And so I invite you now to name in the chat box those things that are lifting your spirits, those things that in the middle of an impossible day can bring a smile to your lips, can remind you of a goodness or a grace or a blessing that was just not on your radar and suddenly is flooding you with gratitude. So I invite you, as you are willing, to share in the chat box those things that give you hope and that fill your cup. It's such a healing balm, the outdoors, the bird song, the weather, the way the heat rises and rises and a storm comes through and there's a breath of cool air, fresh air, the sun, our families. There's a lot going by, hawks and mornings, celebrating with friends, hummingbirds, gardens, Zoom meeting with friends when we can't meet in person or it's challenging to meet in person, just connecting with those we love, friendships that anchor us. And so friends, what I want you to know as you share these gifts, and that's what they are, as you share these blessings, as you share these moments that buoy your spirits, you are sharing them in this community and giving all of us those reminders. So if we feel heavy with grief or sadness, you are reminding us that there are blessings and things of great beauty in this world, and we hold that together. I love when the blessings just zoom by. I can't even read them all. Oh, some of our young ones are chiming in with things that bring them joy. This is fabulous. This is fabulous. So friends, in the midst of it all, the blessings and the challenges, may the grip of addiction be loosened. May the weight of oppression be lifted. May grief be shared. May joy be shared. And may joy break through. And may love make every suffering bearable for us all. May it be so. Amen. And blessed be. And church member Andrew Tralle will now lead us in singing Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Oh my goodness. That was beautiful. That was remarkable. Thank you so much for bringing us the gift of your music, Andrew. It is good to be with you all this morning. Good to be in our sanctuary. So this morning I want to start by saying that I am preaching really, to our BIPOC and multiracial youth and grown-ups. And I want to share a couple of stories this morning from when I was growing up, because maybe it speaks to you, how you or your grown-ups or even their grown-ups grew up as well, and because it might also speak to how we, you and I, make this faith that we are part of. So I think I've shared with you all before that my parents were born in Tanzania and India, both countries that were colonized by the British. Both were educated in schools that were run by the colonizers. That means that they learned to speak and write and read British English, which is a bit different from American English. And because this is what they were taught, it's what they taught me. And so I grew up doing the things that you would do if you spoke British English. I spelled color C-O-L-O-U-R instead of C-O-L-O-R. I spelled flavor F-L-A-V-O-U-R instead of F-L-A-V-O-R. I spelled gray G-R-E-Y instead of G-R-A-Y, although I have to be honest, that one still confuses me. More and more things like that, right? You get the picture. I spelled things a little differently. I also said things differently, and this one is a little bit harder to explain, although maybe you know, if you're one of our BIPOC or multiracial youth, ask one of your grown-ups to show you some age-appropriate British TV shows, and you'll get a little bit of a sense of what I'm talking about. Make sure they're age-appropriate. So in other words, I was taught to speak the English of the folks who had colonized my parents' countries and this country as well. And so you can imagine that when I got to school, it was a little awkward. Kids made fun of me. Some of my teachers went out of their way to correct me, save the one teacher who recognized what was going on, what was up, and did a little lesson sort of on the spot for the whole class about why I learned English differently, which was both the first time that I really felt seen by one of my teachers, and also incredibly embarrassing because I was the center of attention. You see, the thing with being colonized is that, as Trevor Noah put it, it is the most arrogant form of patriotism. The colonizer says directly in so many different ways, you do not know the right, correct, good way to do things. The way I do things is better. My way is better, and I will force you to do it my way. The colonizer claims to have discovered you, found this unknown territory, these unknown people, except that that's never actually true. No one can find another person. No inhabited territory is unknown. Colonization is the most arrogant form of interaction, period. Colonization erases people. And caught as I was between what my parents taught and what I was learning at school, I did a couple of things. One, I learned to make myself understood in multiple languages, multiple spellings, multiple ways of speaking. This was an early lesson in code switching. And I also became pretty shy and quiet. I hung back and I learned to distrust my own voice. The poet Naira Waheed has a poem that I think speaks to part of this. She writes, "You cannot remain a war between what you want to say, who you really are, and what you should say, who you pretend to be. Your mouth was not designed to eat itself." Let me read that again. You cannot remain a war between what you want to say, who you really are, and what you should say, who you pretend to be. Your mouth was not designed to eat itself. And it's true. You cannot remain at war with yourself. Our mouths were not designed to eat themselves, but you can certainly try. And I know I have certainly felt that sense of swallowing myself, that tightness in my throat. Perhaps you have too. So I grew up in a state of some confusion, some tension. This is pretty normal for folks being raised in BIPOC and multiracial families, families where people have to cross boundaries, cross languages, cross borders, cross cultures. This is pretty normal in families of immigrants. We are moving back and forth and within boundaries and borders and languages and cultures, and it becomes pretty normal for us. And this is, of course, I think exactly what Nayera Waheed is writing about. And one of the many reasons that she says you cannot remain a war within yourself, between yourself. So that's the first story. I was taught by colonizers. I was colonized again when I went to school, and part of my work in life has been to unlearn, to use the voice that's mine, not the voice of the colonizers. There's another story I want to share with you. It's also a story about moving between languages. So I told you that my dad grew up in Tanzania in East Africa and that my mom grew up in India. My dad's people were originally from India, and so growing up in his house, he learned Kutchi, Gujarati, and Hindi. These were all languages that were spoken in his house. These were the languages of his people. He also learned Swahili, the language of the country he was in, and he learned Urdu, which was spoken at the mosque. Then when he went to college in India, he also learned Marathi because it was the language of the part of India where he went to school, even though the language of school was British English. My mom, growing up in India in Maharashtra, learned Hindi because it was the national language, and Marathi because it was the language of the state in India that she grew up in, and the language of her people. And as she got to know my dad, she slowly started to learn Gujarati as well because my folks are nerdy like that. Friends, if that sounds like a lot of languages between the two of them, it is. I count 6. And then they moved to this country. They settled in a suburb of Chicago, and they started a family. And like many immigrant families, they were conflicted about language. They wanted their kids to be American, whatever that meant. And so while we were young, they didn't make much of an effort to teach us any of the languages of our people. Isabela and I had a wonderful conversation about this yesterday. But here's the thing. My brother and I learned to understand Marathi in the same way that we understand English. There's no translation that's happening for us. We just understand it. So how did we do that if my parents had not put any effort into teaching us? Well, see, here's what happened. My brother and I, and this might surprise some of you, we got into a lot of trouble. We got into a lot of trouble. And a lot of it was at my instigation. Now, my parents spoke Marathi at home with each other, and I think they sort of assumed that if they didn't teach us something, we wouldn't know it. So my brother and I would fight, we would break stuff, we would do all that stuff that kids do, and we would get in trouble, right? We'd get caught. And my parents would talk with each other in Marathi about what had happened and who did what and what they should ask which one of us to figure out what really happened and who they should punish and how they should punish us. You know, the conversations that grown-ups have when they're trying to figure out what's up and like who should actually be in trouble and who started it. And they're doing this in Marathi, assuming that we don't know what's going on because they think we can't understand them. But here's the thing. My brother and I were the subjects of this conversation. We knew exactly what we had done. We knew exactly what we had done. We knew exactly what they were talking about, which means that over time, and it didn't take long, I cannot actually recall a time when I couldn't understand Marathi. We got to understand what they were saying, and we got to understand it really pretty well. We also got really good at keeping a straight face and acting acting like we were not paying attention at all. We'd just be sitting there reading the book. The whole time we're listening to what was going on. And we also got really good at slowly sneaking away if the conversation seemed like it wasn't going in the direction that we hoped it would go, if the conversation wasn't going well for one of us, in hopes that we might sneak away and that our parents would forget. The whole time though, we were listening. We were listening and we were paying attention and we were picking up all kinds of things that my folks did not know we were learning. At some point, they worked out that we could understand what they were saying. I have a vague memory of my mom looking up, seeing me grinning at some joke she had made in Marathi and saying to my dad, "These kids can understand us." And then she made another joke and I started laughing and then it was all over. Folks, my brother was so annoyed. He was like, "We had the best thing going here and you had to screw it up." He used slightly different language. And of course, being that they knew 6 languages between them, their response was just to switch languages. So once they were like, "Oh, these kids understand Marathi, we're going to switch to Hindi." And so my brother and I learned a little bit of Hindi. And when they saw that we had caught on to that, they would switch to Gujarati. And by then we were teenagers and it was a moot point because they couldn't really punish us effectively anymore anyway. So why am I telling you this story? Well, one is that I want to know you. I have been here for about a year and I want to know you. And for me to know you, you all need to know me. The other reason that I'm sharing these stories is that I want to lift up and support one of the really important ways that we learn things as children of immigrants, as BIPOC and multiracial folk, which is by watching and learning and paying attention. It is a critical way of knowing. It is a critical survival skill that we develop so that we can understand what's happening around us and navigate it as best as we can. The other reason that I wanted to share these stories about language, about identities, about moving between cultures is that in a couple of weeks, we are going to have 2 more BIPOC folk join the staff team. In August, Julika and Barrington will be joining the team, and I cannot tell you how excited I am that they're joining us. I said the other day in a meeting we were in that I already feel like I miss them. I already miss them, and they haven't even started with us yet. That's how much I'm looking forward to this. So come August, you all are going to be served by a ministry team that has 4 BIPOC folk on it. I'm not sure that that exists in another large UU church. Each of us is different. And yet I know that each of us has experience in some different and some similar ways with moving between languages, moving between cultures, and in a way, moving between names, like in that story that Isabela shared with us this morning. I am excited for the ways that we will work together, us on staff, you in the congregation. I am excited for the ways that we will work together to name and claim the Unitarian Universalism that we dream of. I'm excited for the ways that we will name and claim the Unitarian Universalism that we dream of. So let's get to it, friends. May it be so, and amen.
Arif, thank you so much for your stories, for your invitation into a deeper understanding of who you are and this desire you have to let yourself be known. And then that in turn invites us to share with you and with one another who we are in the full complexities of our lives and this desire we have to create a truly alive and vibrant and racially just Unitarian Universalism. So thank you for your stories and your heart this morning. Today, our offering will be a 50-50 split between Families Moving Forward and First Universalist Church. Many of you know that Families Moving Forward is a program of Beacon Interfaith Housing Collaborative, one of our Faithful Action partners. Beacon believes in home and that all of us are called to help create more equitable communities where all people have a home. Families Moving Forward partners with local faith communities to host families experiencing homelessness for a week or two at a time. While we are currently unable to host families due to COVID-19 and construction in our building, we anticipate doing this in the future, and our offering will support this future effort and the needs of that effort. There are a number of ways you can give. You can see those on your screen. You can give by text, you can give via the Square Cash app or online at our website, or you can send a check via mail. As we prepare to give and receive our offering this morning, we give thanks for the singing of Fawzia and the music of Franco. Let us now listen to them as we give and receive our offering.
So friends, as we come to the close of our service, I want to invite you into a space of memory. First, I want to remember what it's like. I want to invite you to remember with me what it's like to be in this sanctuary, to hear Franco, to hear and see Franco playing, to hear and see Fawzia and so many other musicians in our congregation sharing their music with us live. I want to invite you to remember the feel of the pew against your back after about 49 minutes, how you're getting a little wiggly, and how we invite you to stand if you are so inclined to rise in body or spirit, and to reach out and touch a shoulder, to hold a hand, to connect. And so what I want to invite you to do now as we close is to remember what that feels like. Our bodies can remember that kind of contact. You can just stretch your hands out to either side, put your hands up as if you were putting your hands on the shoulders of the people next to you, whatever it is that you did. And if you just settle into that for a moment, settle into that memory for a moment, your hands will remember what that feels like. And so we do this, whether we are physically together or not, to symbolize and to remind ourselves that we are all deeply interconnected, that none of us is alone. And so we close with words from Mary Oliver. To live in this world, you must be able to do 3 things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it. And when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Blessed be. May it be so, and amen. Now I invite you to join me in singing Go Now in Peace. And so as we close, I invite you to extinguish your chalice, knowing that we extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the fire of commitment, and the warmth of love that it symbolizes, that we carry these in our hearts. And if you are so inclined, I invite you to type in the chat, we carry the flame. I carry the flame, as you extinguish your chalice and we close our service.